The question, is there something in Svalbard, too? Look, here's the deal. Everybody that I know and have talked to who's in that world of ultra-black, Hawk has made mention of the Death Star, actually hearing communications. There are people that have, and Death Star is not like the Star Wars, but the very thing that people are mocking. You and I have done just a lot of hours of trying to get people to understand this, but it's like the Black Sea artifact that was sending out signals. It's like the crystal pyramid off the Bermuda Triangle. The thing that people have got to understand is the true reality versus the false reality. The core reality, Stargates and everything Tom and I talk about, that's why the iPads, the iPods, the iPhones, the iMacs, and everything else that's designed to entertain us, critical thinking has been subdued by entertainment and subharmonic mind control. And so what we have right now is we have a breaking forth of relics. We have a breaking forth of real revelation. And I tell people, Tom, if they'll do their own homework, after you and I go on a show, obviously everybody will say, I think those guys are crazy. Well, you can think we're crazy, but we've spent the majority of both our lives investigating this stuff in the mouth of 2,000 or 3,000 witnesses. Maybe there's something there to get your attention, my attention, our attention. And now with what you guys have found out at Mount Graham, it blew my mind and provoked me to go further. And I thank God for that, because it seems like whenever, you do something that you're doing, it triggers in me, or I'm doing something, it triggers in you, meaning it brings us into a realm that God says, it's time, guys. I want you to reveal this to my people. Why? So they're not deceived, so they're not destroyed, and so they're not led away captive by demons, doctrines of demons, and fallen angels. And that's about it in a nutshell to describe why most people simply they're too tuned in to the mind control to do any critical thinking on their own. And while they do that, they've abdicated their duty to be constantly vigilant and standing guard or standing up for the truth. I can tell you this, that the Christians are going to have their whole paradigm shaken unless they seek the Lord, ask the Holy Spirit to reveal what we're talking about to them. And you know that we can do the best we can, but I really want you, if you would just explain the thinking on how the transition is going to be made. At first, it won't be necessary to deny your faith, but at some point everything changes, and then people are going to be not only commanded, but absolutely forced to either comply or die. And that's when it becomes, let's say, this dicey beyond the theoretical.
Yeah, well, and just before I do that, if you've been reading the series as we've published it, did you see where Guy Cosmonalgo used the example of the Nephilim to draw a parallel to the type of alien saviors that might come to the earth? Did you see that? He sent us
yes.
He sent us a 70-page private PDF outlining the Vatican's highest thinkers on this issue, including himself, and that was one of the examples that they used in there, which I found to just be absolutely astonishing, and especially when he refers to Jesus as someone that we might think of as a child of one of these other races, which instantly my question back was, really? I mean, what are you suggesting, that the impregnation of Mary, which is something very sacred to Catholics, that this was an alien abduction phenomenon, right? It's exactly what it sounded like he was saying. Anyway, it reminded me of another investigation that you and I did a decade ago in 2003, when archaeologists discovered a magnetic anomaly in the ground where the Euphrates River once flowed, and it turned out to be, remember this, according to the archaeologists, it was the lost tomb of King Gilgamesh, the legendary ruler of Samaria.
And share with people who Gilgamesh was also half man and half God, and I can tell you this, that when that was found, I was in contact with a group of people that their sole goal for our government is to secure that DNA. And by the way, it was real. And the whole purpose of the Iraqi invasion wasn't weapons of mass destruction. They really did, Tom, pilfer what Saddam Hussein had amassed through all the excavations in Iraq which obviously is Babylon. So it was interesting. One general told me point blank, he told me this one-on-one, not through anything, but he said it to me. He said, Steve, everything in the world of black ops is either to secure antiquity and keep it from coming into the light, or to acquire the weaponry and the technology to integrate into our battle plan. And some people just simply can't take that.
Well, that's right. I mean, and if somebody wants, if anybody doubts that the Tomb of Gilgamesh was found, or that that's a story that, we didn't have our facts on right, they can email me. I can send them the stories from that time. They're still online. The Assyrian International News Agency, ABC News, the BBC. I mean, these were mainstream news agencies that were covering that story. We found the Tomb of Gilgamesh. Of course, why is that important? Because in the Bible, this was Nimrod, and in the New Testament, this is the same personality that is described as the Antichrist. He that was and is not and yet shall be. This is the Antichrist, the son of perdition, Apollyon, Apollo as he was known to the Greeks, Nimrod in the Bible, Gilgamesh to the ancient Sumerians. But this is the same personality or Antichrist spirit that's going to rise up again in the end time. So you got to know that in high intelligence in our governments, they're fully aware of these prophecies. And when somebody says we have found the legendary tomb of King Gilgamesh, well, guess what? A few seconds later, you've got American troops surrounding the location. But now, here's another thing that at the time I didn't think about, but I thought about it since. It's interesting, isn't it, that that's the same location. That discovery is the same location that's mentioned in the book of Revelation, chapter 9, when John describes the bottomless pit opening up. The gateway to the underworld, Revelation 9, located near the Euphrates, where ancient Babylon stood, and that's where they said they discovered this tomb or this opening, this Gilgamesh thing. And whatever the case was, within hours of the find, the U.S. military, they go in, they set up a barrier around the site, they remove whatever's there, they secret it away to places unknown, and the media that had all been set to cover the Gilgamesh findings suddenly find themselves without any kind of a story and in the dark. Now, according to Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval in their book, Message of the Sphinx, at the same time, the U.S. and Egyptian government blocked independent investigations around the Great Sphinx of Giza. Why would they have done that? The Great Sphinx, this is where some believe there's a Hall of Records. I don't know if that's true or not, but some people believe, and of course it was the psychic Edgar Cayce, I think, that got a lot of people excited about that. But there are some very ancient works, too, that also talk about how there might be this library containing the lost knowledge of the Egyptians on papyrus scrolls, the history of the lost continent of Atlantis or whatever it is, buried there. But it just shows the pattern is consistent over and over again. All this follows a very consistent protocol. In fact, in research for Exo Vaticana, we tracked down a forgotten report by the Brookings Institution, the #1 policy think tank in the world that have contributors from every field of science, industry, philosophy, and religion. And they published a secret report in the 1960s. We're going to give this report away free when the book comes out. But they published this report for the Committee of Long-Range Studies of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, in which they argued in favor of NASA and other national agencies doing exactly what Capelati and all these other people have argued for, and that is withholding from the public knowledge or evidence of alien artifacts. And in the Brookings Institute, they speculate the reason for withholding it is because, well, they felt that it was going to completely upset the balance of society if it wasn't introduced in the right way and at the right times. And what's also very interesting is that they were particularly concerned with fundamentalist Christians. In fact, I think they had Steve Quayle in mind, because when you read their secret report, they talk about how fundamentalist Christians might react to and even define the issue through broadcast and print media. And they were very concerned about that. And as such, they said that these institutions ought to be infiltrated and gradually steered toward a particular mindset, which the government then could favor in terms of deciding when disclosure would be made. So evidently, this is working with some of the Vatican astronomers, and I don't think it's working at all with Steve Quayle.